But as we've been saying, it's a thick of earnings season. Asian Paints numbers just coming out on your screen. The stocks are reacting positively because the numbers on the face of it are a little bit stronger than what the consensus view was, is what we pick up, at least on the console book. All right, console numbers, net profit at 455 on a YOY basis versus 338. Massive jump coming in there as far as the bottom line is concerned. Well, you've got tax expense at 211 crores. Just trying to see the other income component. It's a little bit higher at 73 versus 52, but still it's the top line boost as well. 3623 crores versus 336. So yeah, it's a little bit higher is what we're seeing in terms of total income that we've seen from the company this time around. And the stock also probably is cheering that a little bit. Let's pull up the stock performance for you as well. Take a look at that spike, but it's just trying to see a little bit of rationality as well. 1% now higher is what we're tracking. Try and see if the margin expectations have been met out here in regard, because you were expecting some benefits of lower oil prices to actually trickle in. Let me try and read the commentary as well. All right, now this is where the concerning bit is. Take a look at the commentary of the management. No significant improvement in demand conditions witnessed in the decorative coating business in India in the quarter. Let's try and highlight that on the ticker for you as well. The management commentary is probably what seems to be playing out on the counter as well. That the management, I'll just verbatimly quote, saying no significant improvement in demand conditions witnessed in the decorative coatings business in India in the last quarter. Lower raw material prices aided gross margins of the business. That's because of oil prices. The growth in the industrial coating JV was led by good demand in industrial liquid paints and powder coating segment. The automotive coating JV witnessed subdued demand conditions both in the general industrial as well as the auto OEM segment. The auto refinish segment registered decent growth. The international business reported satisfactory performance aided by contribution from the units in Middle East and in Ethiopia, is a quote coming from KBS Anand, Managing Director and CEO of Asian Paints. In fact, he's also gone ahead and added that in the home improvement business category, the kitchen and bath business has been impacted by subdued demand conditions. And there you go. The stock also now almost in negative is what we're seeing as far as the commentary is concerned. That's where you really have the concern coming in, because the numbers per se is a strong performance, but the commentary that we're seeing in the press release hasn't really been that. Let me try and gauge this with Mayuresh Joshi, fund manager for Angel Broking, joining in as well. Mayuresh, numbers, I mean, I don't know if you've got any more details than what we've been flashing on the last couple of minutes, but is it the numbers that have been concerning you, or the commentary?
Afternoon, Priyank. Clearly, I think numbers more or less in line with estimates. The only number that I probably see on the screen right now is the profitability number, which has probably exceeded even our estimates. So it's been a beat on the profitability front. But the commentary is going to be key, specifically for a company like Asian Paints, because I think how the volume growth trends pan out and what is the demand scenario both in the urban and the rural geographies for Asian Paints is an important criteria. What happens with the industrial paint division, which contributes a very minuscule portion at the current juncture, and the international business as well. So I think the demand outlook is something that should be understood from the management commentary, and again how they're probably seeing or perceiving the fall in crude and crude oil derivative prices in terms of the raw material scenario panning out of the next few quarters.
Mayuresh, you know what? Let me try and read out what the management has said in the press release out here. It's rare that we see such a clear statement coming in from the management, especially when the numbers reflect otherwise. Mayuresh, let me try and just once again repeat what the management quote is. This quote is basically in the press release from Mr. KBS Anand, Managing Director and CEO of Asian Paints, and he goes there and he says in the press release that there's been no significant improvement in demand conditions witnessed in the decorative coating business in India in the quarter. He also goes there and says lower raw material prices aided gross margins of the business, but the growth in the industrial coating JV was led by good demand in industrial liquid paints and powder coating segment. The automotive coating JV witnessed subdued demand conditions both in the general industrial as well as the auto OEM segment, and he goes on to say that the auto refinish segment registered decent growth. The international business reported satisfactory performance aided by contribution from the units in Middle East and Ethiopia specifically. He also goes ahead and specifies in the home improvement business category, the kitchen and bath business have been impacted by subdued demand conditions. Mayuresh, that's why I started off asking you, is it the commentary or is it the numbers that seems to be playing out on the stock?
So I think, if I put it very Candidly, I think it's a mix of both. So if you look at the commentary, I think the near-term concerns probably are causing an overhang for the decorative paints industry. So I think the underlying growth that is probably driving the dynamics of the paint industry is improving macros, that the consumer sentiment should improve, and that should drive volume growth specifically with regards to the decorative paint segment. When you're talking about the international business or the international operations, I think it's going to be a mixed number, at least for the next few quarters. The Ethiopian operations where Asian Paints has started its plant with the acquisition that it has done. I think that will take some time for it to really gain mass. And clearly on the industrial paint segment, I think it again hinges on the kind of growth that you're probably seeing in the auto segment as well as the non-auto segment. So in case if the rains or the monsoons are not that great, you might see subdued demand coming from this side of the business as well. On the home improvement business, yes, I think it has got incremental levers from a long-term perspective. But again, I think one really needs to take its presence across geographies, and Asian Paints is probably trying to do that. So yes, I think the commentary specifically related to the other businesses need to get driven along with the kind of growth plans that the management has in focus. Decorative paints, per se, in my opinion, I think as far as I see the numbers on your screen right now, the EBITDA margin, the PAT has been a beat. It has exceeded our expectations. But again, I think the improving macros over the next few quarters should drive growth. So again, I think one really needs to understand that the kind of gross margin expansion that you're really talking about was because of the fall that you had seen in the crude oil derivative prices, which has played out in the numbers. Whether the paint companies will be able to report supernormal margin expansion going forward, I think one really needs to wait and see. But I think the input cost correction that we probably witnessed, and if it stays this way, I think that will definitely create a lever to increase volume growth going forward.
Stocks, in fact, now taking a dip, Mayuresh, is down nearly 1.2 to 1.3%. At 842, Mayuresh, what would the strategy be on Asian Paints? Good level to probably enter, I mean, with the kind of skepticism that we're seeing from the management commentary as well. What's your strategy when we talk about this stock?
So clearly, I think the growth levers are there, as I mentioned, Priyanka, in terms of how the demand might pan out. And being an industry leader, Asian Paints has 55% market share. Again, I think the earnings growth should be quite reasonable over the next couple of years. The factors we were talking about should aid EBITDA expansion and also the return ratio. So the ROEs, ROCs should actually improve from 33% in terms of ROE, 34% in terms of ROC that it is currently deriving at, and that should drive profitability growth. However, I think the only exception is the kind of valuations it currently derives at around 35 times at 517, a tad bit on the higher side. So again, I'll wait for declines onto this stock and not really in a rush to buy this stock at this point of time.
All right, Mayuresh, fair enough. Point taken. Thanks for taking the time out to talk to us as far as Asian Paints numbers are concerned. Stock, though, seeing a little bit of action post those numbers, but it's probably the management commentary that's playing out, which has been pretty concerning in regard to the way the outlook has been panning out, saying, well, still no improvement seen as far as a couple of the segments are concerned in the last quarter as well as far as demand is concerned. So let's see how this stock plays out, but numbers per se, it's been a strong print that we've seen. On that note, it's a wrap on Market Pulse. Stay tuned. Coming up next is Lunch Money.